So we're carrying on from where we ended last time, and that's with the like to-do list type of thing. Um, I'm gonna just show you a quick like front end for this, just to show you what we'll be building today. That's annoying down there. I'll move it up. So yeah, this. So it's basically the same thing. This will look the exact same as last time. We can add a task, like we can add homework. Um, and the thing we're doing differently this time is we're going to add a new table, which would be a subtask. So subtask, we could do like,
I'll go home.
yeah, I'll go homework or ML homework. So each task can now have a subtask. And like hint, this will be a relational database. Like there will be a relation between subtask and tasks. Um, Actually, can anyone just tell me what the relationship is? I feel like you can probably think it through between like a task and then a subtask. Another egg.
We have one more.
All right. It's an egg question.
What's the relationship? Yeah.
Get
One to
in.
many.
Yep.
Alright.
Well done. So one task can have multiple subtasks. Each subtask is assigned to one task.
All right. You want an egg, right? All right. Bad. That's a bad. Wait, that egg was heavier than normal. That's like there's something big in that one.
Okay, cool. So let's get started then. Should be already recording. All right. So we have the same code as last time. If you're behind, you can download it, like the code from last time online. It might be like slightly different, but all the things that we write should work. And yeah, everything's exactly the same. I did add one thing in app.py. There's a new thing here, but we'll explain that when we get there. It's very simple change. So yeah, we're gonna get started with this subtask table. So the first thing we're gonna implement is just to create the table, like same as last time. Last time we created the task table, and this time we're gonna create the subtask table. So we'll create subtask table, and it's just gonna take in self. Cool. We'll write a little quick doc string for good code sake using SQL 8 sub table. Cool. So all we need to do for this one, it'll be very similar to this one up here. We're just going to do self.con.execute, and then we're going to be creating the table with all the things that we want in it. So I'll just write it out in case you're trying to follow along. Self.con.execute. We're gonna do this little triple string. By the way, I forgot if we mentioned this, but like the SQL commands can be in any quotes. So we do triple here because it's multi-line, but you can also do like single quotes if it's a single line. All right. So the keyword here is create table, and then if not exists. So if the table doesn't exist, we want to make it. Otherwise, it'll already exist. So we're good. And then we're doing subtask is the name of the table. I think I can copy a lot of these from above because subtasks basically are just the same thing as a regular task, but it's going to have an ID, it's going to have a description, it's going to have a done check. I'll just copy this. So everything should be pretty much the same. We just want to have this new relationship. So we determined that it would be a one-to-many relationship, right? And we say that the way that we do that is to have this foreign key to task, right? So each subtask is going to be have a task ID that it's attached to, basically. So we're going to add this task ID here. And it's going to be an integer. We need to have it, so it's not null. And then in this case, it's not going to be unique because it's a one-to-many relationship, not a one-to-one relationship. Cool. And then we just need to make sure that this is listed as a foreign key. So we do that by foreign key. We pass in what we want to be. So task ID in this case. And then we have that references tasks ID. So it's referencing the ID column and task to be our foreign key. This looks pretty good to me, just a semicolon here. And that should be all right. The next thing that we have to do is just make sure that when we run it, the create subtask table is run. So we're going to go back to init. This is where our database is initialized. And we create task table, and then we're going to also create the subtask table. Perfect. So this should all be good. I'm gonna run it just because it'll give me like an error if I messed anything up. We should be okay. Just as a little quick check, we can't really test anything because we just created the table, but yeah. Cool. So I think let's just get into making some routes. The first thing that we're gonna want to do is is it good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you want to create that was you're creating a table, but you want to do like the extra back. Oh, you want to start with
Mhm.
the routes?
No, no, I'm just saying like move on from the thing. Yeah. So let's think through how we would create a new subtask, right? Um, I guess if we were thinking through like the route that we wanted to make, something that we might have it do is uh, like pass in a task ID, right? And then check if that task exists because we want the task to exist before we make a subtask to it, and then create the subtask, right? So to do that in our database.py, we're going to have to create two things before we make a route. So the first one would just be an insert subtask that will insert into our subtask table a new subtask. And then the second one is just a way to get a subtask.
You just write out the function headers before you
Yeah, I could do that. Oh, you mean like the, yeah,
just
here,
write the
sure.
function.
Yeah, yeah. So the first one we're going to do is insert subtask, right? And then other than self, we're just going to be passing in like a description, done status, like it's completed or not, and then a task ID that we're going to be linking it to, like the foreign key. Cool. And then the other one that we're going to need is just a way to get a subtask by ID. Cool. In this case, we're starting with the DB functions here or methods here, but if you wanted to start with routes, you could, and then just create these as you need them. But yeah, so we'll start with insert subtask here. We'll write a little comment using SQL. It's a new subtask into the subtask table. Cool, simple enough. We're going to be doing the same thing as last time, so that's using this cursor here. And then we're going to be storing into cursor what the output of this SQL command, which will be self.con.execute. And it's just going to be our insert into, a little keyword there. So it's insert into subtask. And then what do we have? We have a description. We have the done status, and then we have that task ID, right? And then the values we're passing in there with the values keyword, we're gonna initially be these question marks because they're variables. And that'll be all for the query, but then we just have to remember to pass in those like this. So in order, it's description, done, task ID. Cool. And then the only last thing to do in here is to commit these changes because we did like update the data. So we'll just do self.con.commit. Cool. And what we're gonna want to return here is actually the ID of the subtask that we just created so that we can check if the subtask was successfully created or get the subtask later. So the way we do that, if you remember, is return cursor.last_row ID. Now we'll return the ID of the thing we just created. Cool. So let's do this get subtask by ID, and then we'll go back and make the route. And you'll see why we need to do this get subtask by ID before we make the insert later, but yeah. So just as a little doc string, we'll do using SQL, get a subtask ID. Pretty standard. Cool. So this time we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be putting the result into cursor, and we're going to be executing with self.con.execute. And maybe somebody could figure out the SQL command we're going to be doing this time. So we'll be using this ID here as a little hint, and we're just going to be trying to get the subtask by ID. So if anyone remembers like any part of the query that we might want to have. Mm.
Yeah, from Subtasks.
Yeah, select, but yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be selecting from subtask, and we're just going to be, we'll initially say like select all from subtask, but obviously we only want to get the one with this ID. So how would we like filter to be that ID? Does anyone remember the keyword or like, yeah, yeah, exactly. So we're going to be getting all from subtask where our ID equals, and then passing that question mark there. And then the ID here that we just passed in. Cool. So this will get us a cursor object, which will have our subtask in it, right? Yeah, cool. But remember, now we're going to be trying to return the subtask itself, and it's in a cursor object, and we have to get it into a like way that we can understand it. So we want to put it in a dictionary here. So if you remember, we do this like for row in cursor. In this case, we're only going to have one row, right? Because we're only getting one thing, hopefully. But we're still going to do this for row and cursor just because it'll let us like access it easily. And then we're just going to return straight in here. And we're going to do an ID. Remember, we're just returning like this subtask. So we're going to have an ID, description, done, and then a task ID. So we'll do an ID. The value for that should just be this ID that we passed in here. So that's good. Next, we're going to have a description. So we have this row object, right? And in order, it'll be ID, description, done, task ID. So the way that we get like the description would just be the first index of description. ID should be row 0, and then description's row 1. And then similarly, done will be row 2, and task ID will be row 3. Cool. So this should all be good, but in the case that there were no rows, we're just going to return none. So you could also do this a different way, like check like if row is none, return none, but we're just decided to do it this way. So we'll return here, but if nothing happened, if we didn't go into this for loop in the first place, we'll return none. All right, so everything there should be good. We're going to go to the app.py now and make the route. How are we doing on time? Oh, could you? I'm at 8%. I'm just grab my charger real quick.
Can you start? Huh? Or here you can do it.
You got it. Okay, so we're going to be trying to implement a create subtask route here. So everything should be pretty similar to like the task, but our URL here is going to be /tasks. That makes sense. And then we're going to be given a specific task, right? Task ID. Because we're like creating a subtask for a specific task, right? So like on this task, create a new subtask. So we'll pass in the task ID. And then we're just gonna have this new subtasks uh, thing there. What to call that? Cool. So we add this /subtasks, and then our method here is going to be a post. So we're creating a new subtask, right? Does everything look good here?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So then we're just going to be doing a like create subtask. And remember, we passed in this task ID here. Cool. I'll just make a little doc string again. Endpoint for creating a subtask for task ID, task ID. All right, cool. So we have this, so we're creating a new subtask, right? So we're going to pass in a description for that subtask. So we have to get that from our like JSON. So do body equals JSON.loads. So this is from the request. We'll do request.data. Cool. So this gets us the body of our request. And then we just have to do description equals body.get description. So this is just getting the description from our body. This should be like familiar from last time. And then we're just going to make sure that the task exists before we try and create the subtask, because we don't want to like try and post a subtask to a task that doesn't exist, right? So we'll make that check. So we'll do just as before. We'll do like we'll get the task from by ID, which is defined in our DB. We'll get task by ID, task ID, and then if the task doesn't exist, if task is none, we are going to like return a 404 error, right? So before we were doing it like this, we would just return JSON.dumps error task is not found with a 404. This time we just added these little helper functions here. So instead of like writing it out every time, you just write success response or failure response with a message. So it's just a little bit cleaner and easier for you guys to use, less repeated code. And I think that we want you to use that on the assignments too, if I remember correctly. So in this case, we're just going to be returning a failure response with the message task not found or something like that, something helpful. And this will just return us like a 404 error here with the message. Cool. So we know that the task exists now. So let's just insert the subtask. So remember that it returns us the ID of the subtask we created. So we'll do subtask ID. And then we're just going to insert the subtask. So db.insert task. And we pass in that description, right? For the done value, we're gonna pass in false. And the task ID we have here in task ID. Cool. So now we have the subtask ID of the subtask we just created, and we're gonna check that it was created successfully. So the way we do that is using the method that we just made. So we're going to get the subtask by ID and pass in that subtask ID. Perfect. So now we have that subtask that should have hopefully just been created in this line here. And we're just going to check if that worked. So we're going to check if subtask is none. That's bad. Something went wrong. We're going to return a failure response. And then just like, we don't know exactly what went wrong, but we could not create the subtask somehow. Yeah, and then I'm going to do a 500 error here just because we don't really know what went wrong. It's not that we couldn't find it necessarily. It probably just meant that something went wrong. You could also do like a 400 here, but it's probably not a 404. Cool, but otherwise, if it is found, then we'll just return a success response. Cool, and we're going to pass in that subtask that we just got here because we want to return the subtask itself, not just its ID in the wrap. Cool. And then we want a 201 code here because we created something. So 201 is the code for successfully created. All right. This all looks pretty good.
Explain.
Sense. What's up? What am I going to use this for?
Explain line by line. It's a pretty long.
Yeah, so Josh kind of like put this into my hand. But yeah, we're getting the request body, right? We're getting the request body, which will just have a description. We'll show you that in Postman. And then we get the description from that body, right? From the request. I'm kind of using a shadow here. I don't know if that really works right, but like, all right. Yeah, and then we just make sure that the task that we're like attaching it to, it exists in the first place. So we're just going to get the task by ID, make sure it exists. Then we're going to create the subtask, which will give us the ID back. And then we're going to use that ID to get the subtask. And we just made both of these in our DB file. Cool. So now we have this subtask. We just have to make sure that it was actually successfully created. If it's none, something pretty bad went wrong. So we say could not create subtask with a 500 error. Otherwise, we just return our subtask. All right, cool. Pretty nifty. So let's test it, see what went wrong. It's running. Okay, there's something. So we want to like create a subtask, right? I'm gonna create a new request here. It was a post request, if I remember correctly, and it's just gonna be like create subtask, right? Our URL, what was it? This should be the same, just like our base URL. Then we have tasks. We pass in an ID of the task that we want to make the subtask for. And then what else was there? Just this /subtasks, right? Cool. This looks pretty good to me. We just gotta add the body, right? So we want to add like a description. So we do that with description. And then I have no idea what task to do. Josh has an algo prelim tomorrow, so I'll do study for algo. Cool. Let's just get all tasks first. Is that running? It is. Okay, so we don't have any tasks. Let's just create a task first.
Try and
Like,
look at the error. Is error?
no, it's good. I think it's okay. We just haven't created any tasks yet. So we'll make a task 5, study for algo. Okay, good. Let's try and create a subtask to that task. So in study for algo, maybe he has to do like a practice prelim. So create that. So it looks like it was successfully created. We created a new subtask. It has ID 1. Description was practice prelim. It started off by being not done. And we have the task ID that we passed in right here. And then we have no really way to test this right now because we have no like get subtasks. And if we do like get all tasks, we never like appended our subtask. So we'll just get the same task as it was. So that's not very helpful, but that's what we're about to fix. And then actually just one thing really quick that I was like wondering, I just thought I should mention. If you notice, like in our insert subtask here, right, we accept like a done value, right? So like theoretically you could set it to true when you're creating it. But we know like we want to set it to false. The reason that we handle that in our app.py is generally our db.py is going to be for just raw data. It's not going to make any decisions about our application. We want like the business logic, the actual application logic to be in app.py. So db.py will just accept any value of done you give it. And in app.py, we decide like, okay, when we create a subtask or a task, we want it to not be completed when we create it. So that's why we do that there. All right. Yeah, so Josh is gonna finish it off here.
So, we already have the method to create a subtask. We can insert it and we can also get it by ID. So, just now Sky said he wanted to test it in Postman, but then we don't actually have a like a method in db.py to actually get all the subtasks of a specific task. So let's make that right now. So I'm just gonna make a new function called get subtasks by task ID. And holding on this self and task. So what this function is going to do is you give it a task ID and it will return all the subtasks under that task. So give it docstring using SQL, gets all subtasks for a given task ID. Yep. And here, once again, we're going to use a cursor variable, cursor goes self.con.execute. And here we want to get all the subtasks for its task ID, right? So we're also going to be filtering. But the main keyword is going to be select. Let me just actually make it one line. So select all from subtask. And here we want to filter for a specific task ID because we don't want to get all the subtasks. We're just gonna want to get the ones that are like under this task ID. So it's going to be where task ID equals, and then we're going to insert it with like this variable right here. So we're going to put it as a comma for like as a question mark, semicolon, and then here we're going to put the task ID. That that was good. So after we execute this, the result will be in cursor. And same like last time, we want to loop through, we want to iterate through all the things in cursor, like imagine the Excel sheet like last time, and we want to add it to an array, right? So we want to make a array, like a list, a Python list called subtasks. And then here we're going to do for row in cursor. And every time we find or we go through a new row, we want to append that to subtask. So
It's like, you know,
really?
Oh. Maybe just like,
Yeah.
we should have it.
Nice. Subtasks dot append. And here we want to append a JSON object. It's going to be an ID, and that will be row 0. These are the same fields as this now. So the second row will be description. That'll be row 1. Typo there. And then we want the done flag. That'll be row 2. And we want the task ID as well. ID be row 3. Yeah. So for every single row in the cursor, we'll be appending all the data, the ID, description, the done, and task into as a JSON object, see with the curly braces, into subtask. So now subtask has all our subtasks. Yeah. And then we're just going to return it. So return subtask. Yep. So what this function does is it will get all the subtasks after we give it the task ID. So using this, we can go back to here, and we can create a route that will get us all the subtasks of a subtask. It's so funny to say every time, man. App.route. Here we want a URL. It's going to be slash tasks slash. We're gonna give it an integer, which will be our task ID. That should be a space there. And here we're gonna do subtask slash. This will be a get request, and let's just make the function. So define get subtasks of task. Yep, and forgot. I gotta pass in the task ID here. Yeah, so let's just make a quick doc string. So this is the endpoint for getting all subtasks for a given task ID. And here, the first thing we want to do is we just want to call the function we just created in DB, which is this one. So I'm just going to copy that. And here we'll store it inside because right here, actually not this one. We're going to first get the task to see if it's there because we want to make sure that the task is there. So task equals db dot get task by ID. This is calling the function we made last time, which is right. Let's see where it is. Right here. It's this function. So this function, it gets a task by ID. So we get task by ID and we give it the task ID. And then as usual, if task is none, then we want to return failure response. Oh my God, I can't type. The response. And here we give it a useful error message like task is not found. Right. But if we did find it, we can just get all the subtasks of that task. So it will be db dot get. This will be the same thing as here actually. The recent one, db dot get subtask by task ID. So like this, and we pass in the task ID, right? And you could put this in a function, but I'm just going to return this right away. So just return success response. like this. And remember that inside here, you want to have a JSON object. You don't want to return a list, right? You want to return a JSON object. So it will be something like this. And the key will be all the subtasks. So subtasks. And the values will be db.get subtask by task ID. Like that. Yeah. And it looks good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically just a JSON object with like one key, and then the one value is the list of all of your subtasks.
Yep. I hope this is clear. Let's test in Postman. Where's Postman?
We can ask questions. Have questions in a second.
Oh, really? Right, so do we have? We
No,
not
you
have
got
it.
it.
Okay. So create a new request. Add request. Here will be get the subtasks of a task. It'll be get request, and here it's going to be the same thing, but we want an ID. So for like just now, we already have like the task of ID 5 actually, and here I'm just going to put subtasks. This nothing in the body, and if we run this, it should work. Yeah. So as you can see, it returns a bit tiny. Maybe I don't know how this command plus. Oh yeah,
That's maybe too much.
yeah. It returned a 200 response, so everything's good. And it returned a JSON object with. Let me just make a JSON. Yeah, with subtask, and inside it we have the list of all the subtasks we created. So like if I create a new one, so this is for task 5, and I create a new subtask. Let's say like laundry. And I send that, and we go back to get subtask of a task. We should have another entry here like that. Yeah, so it's see subtask, and it returns a list of all the subtasks right there. All right.
So just if you're wondering about like why it's done 0 and not done false, it's just the way JSON formats it. So like 0 is false, 1 is true. Yeah.
Yep. Next one. Yeah, so now we gotta actually modify get all tasks, because right now if we do get all tasks, right here, we do this, it will just give us tasks, but we know that this task actually has a bunch of subtasks, right? So we will kind of want it to show up here. To do that, we'll just be modifying our get all task function in the DB. So it should be here. Yeah, get all tasks. See, right now it only shows us the ID, description, and done. But here what we can actually do is we can actually add another field that we want to return. Why is it caps lock? Subtasks. And then here I can call the function that I did to get all the subtasks. So self.get subtasks by task ID. Yep. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry. All right. And here, we also want to get row 0. Because get subtask by ID. I don't know if I can't click this, but like go down here. It'll return a list of subtasks. Wait, we don't even need row 0, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think we need it. Actually, let's not do that.
Wait, I mean, you have to pass. It's like the ID you're passing,
Oh.
right? Like you're passing in.
Oh yeah, it is the ID
You're
right
passing
here.
in the ID.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's just the
So this is just the ID. Yeah.
yeah. So
So
you're getting the subtask of the task ID, which you get like in that first thing, which is in row 0.
this is kind of trippy. Yeah.
It is a little trippy, yeah.
So you get all tasks. Cursor will have all the list of all your tasks. And then for every row, you want to append the ID, description, the done. And then you also want to call a function and pass in the ID of the task you're like appending, right? So this is the ID. Yep. All right.
Oh, long time.
Okay. Let's
is that
test that. That's it actually.
Okay.
So we don't really have to change anything. We just have to run this route again. So if I press send, there we go. So now whenever you just do get all tasks, it'll also return the subtask inside right here, the subtask inside the task body. So if I create another task, for example, like this is a basic task, not a subtask, like cook food. this get all tasks would still return us that. So like task, these are like the big tasks, right? And then inside them you had like a mini task, like subtask, like that. So it's nested. Yeah. And that's basically the end of the demo. Any questions?